This is Postscript News, cutting through the noise one headline at a time, quick, clear, unfiltered.
Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Let's jump right into it. Today is April 11th, 2025. And we've got a lot to cover today from a bunch of different sources. We're going to try to make sense of it all, like we always do.
Yeah, it's kind of a whirlwind of news today. We've got judicial rulings and economic policy and legislative battles.
Yeah.
And some interesting legal stuff happening in the tech world. And of course, we can't forget about the rising tensions on the international stage.
Well, let's start with something that's been in the news quite a bit lately, the Supreme Court.
Right.
So I've got this AP News report, and they're focusing on the U.S. immigration section.
Okay.
And it looks like the court has just told the Trump administration that they need to bring back a man from Maryland who was apparently deported by mistake.
Interesting. You know what's really striking to me is the timing of this whole thing. We've got this helicopter crash in New York City that's grabbing everyone's attention.
Yeah.
There's still that big debate about whether the government can deport people based on their beliefs.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got President Trump going at it with everyone on these tariffs.
Yeah, it feels like everything is happening at once.
And right in the middle of it all, you've got this Supreme Court decision. It's like a reminder that these big policy debates have real human consequences.
Yeah, it definitely brings it home. It shows that even in a system as complicated as immigration, there's still a chance to say, hey, we made a mistake. Let's try to fix it.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Makes you think about those checks and balances they talk about, right? Like the courts are there to keep an eye on things.
Well, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the economy. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, they call it DOGE.
DOGE, yeah.
They just released their first survey on unemployment claims since 2020, and some of the findings are, well, a little hard to believe.
What did they find?
So they're saying that they found almost 10,000 people with birth dates in the future.
In the future?
Yeah, like they haven't been born yet. And these people somehow managed to claim $69 million in unemployment benefits.
Wow. That's pretty wild. Like, how is that even possible?
They gave this one example of a person with a birth year of 2154. This person apparently claimed $41,000.
2154. That's like science fiction territory.
I know, right?
Makes you wonder if someone's been watching too many movies.
Well, it gets even weirder. They also found about 24,500 people over the age of 115 who claimed $59 million. And get this, about 28,000 kids between the ages of 1 and 5 somehow claimed $254 million.
Whoa. Those are some serious numbers. Makes you question the whole system.
Right. It seems like there's a lot of room for fraud. I mean, Musk even said on X that there's no sanity check for age when people are claiming benefits.
So basically anyone could just put in any birth date and get away with it.
It seems that way. But, we should probably take a step back and think about DOGE for a second. Newsweek did a piece on them a while ago, and it reminded me that Trump created this department specifically to cut government spending.
Yeah, he's been all about that, right?
Yeah.
Less government, less spending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, there are people who say that DOGE is going too far, that they're cutting into essential programs.
Well, that's always the debate, isn't it? Like, how do you balance efficiency with taking care of people who need help?
It's a tough one for sure. And, it's important to remember that unemployment insurance is mostly run by the states. They get the money from payroll taxes, and usually those benefits only last for about 6 months.
6 months. Yeah, that's not a lot of time.
And that brings up another point. DOGE got all this data from somewhere, but they haven't really said where. It makes you wonder how accurate it all is.
Right. Maybe there were just some typos or something. You can't rule that out. It would be nice if they were a little more transparent about their methods, though.
Agreed. And, a lot of people on X are saying the same thing. Some think it's just data entry errors, but others are coming up with all sorts of conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories always pop up. It's like clockwork.
And speaking of things changing, Musk is on his way out of the Trump administration. We don't know the exact date yet, but his departure could definitely shake things up at DOGE.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be interesting to see who takes over and what direction they take the department in.
Okay, let's move on to what's happening in Congress. The House just passed a bill that's a big win for President Trump's budget plans.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard about that. Tell me more.
Well, it looks like it sets the stage for what they're calling a massive conservative policy overhaul. The reports are saying it's a victory for both Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson.
This is big news then. What's in the bill?
It wasn't easy getting it passed, though. The vote was mostly along party lines, and there were even some Republicans who were hesitant about the spending cuts. They had to do a lot of negotiating to get everyone on board.
So even within the party, there's some disagreement.
It happens all the time, right? But it looks like Speaker Johnson is confident that they have enough votes now to move forward with the budget resolution and basically give Trump what he wants.
What exactly is he trying to do with the budget?
Their big goal is to cut spending by at least $1.5 trillion. But they're saying they want to do it while protecting essential programs. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, $1.5 trillion, that's a lot of money. How are they planning to do that?
Well, they're using this thing called budget reconciliation, which is kind of a fast-track process in Congress. It means they can get certain tax and spending bills through the Senate with a simple majority, 51 votes, instead of the usual 60.
So they're trying to bypass the need for more bipartisan support.
Exactly. It's a pretty strategic move, and we're starting to see where the Republicans want to spend and where they want to cut.
I'm curious, what are some of the key areas?
Well, it looks like they're pushing for more money for border security and the military. They also want to raise the debt ceiling, which is coming up soon, and they're looking at cutting spending on green energy and maybe even some entitlement programs.
So kind of a mixed bag of priorities.
Yeah, and on top of that, they want to extend the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which are about to expire. They also want to find a way to get rid of taxes on tipped income and overtime wages.
That's a lot to tackle. Do we know if the Senate is on the same page with all this?
Well, the Senate has its own version of the budget plan. The goals are the same, but there's a difference in how much they want to cut. The House is aiming for at least $1.5 trillion in cuts, but the Senate wants to cut at least $4 billion.
So there's going to have to be some compromise there.
For sure. And like I said, there was a lot of pushback from some Republicans initially, which slowed things down. It's always a balancing act to keep everyone in the party happy.
Especially when you're trying to make big changes. It's like herding cats sometimes, I bet.
And let's not forget about the debt ceiling. That's coming up this summer. And then we've got Trump's tax cuts expiring at the end of the year. So there's definitely a sense of urgency here.
Definitely adds to the pressure.
Speaking of economic policy, the House just voted to overturn a rule from the Biden era that was supposed to limit bank overdraft fees to $5.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was a pretty big deal at the time.
Yeah, the vote was close 217 to 211. And it looks like the resolution is headed to President Trump's desk.
So what's the argument for getting rid of this rule?
The Republicans are saying that if you cap overdraft fees at $5, it'll force banks to stop offering overdraft protection altogether, and that would end up hurting people who need that service.
I see their point.
They're also saying that competition is better than government regulation when it comes to making sure financial products are affordable, and they point out that banks are making a lot of money from overdraft fees right now, like $8 billion a year.
So they're basically saying, let the free market do its thing.
Pretty much. And remember, the banks sued over this rule before, so this vote is kind of a way to go around that whole process.
Interesting. What about the other side? Why were the Democrats against overturning it?
Well, the Democrats are saying that this rule was meant to protect people from what they call junk fees. They say these fees are unfair and put a big burden on a lot of families.
Yeah, those fees can really add up.
Exactly. The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, did some calculations, and they estimated that this rule would have saved people about $5 billion a year, or about $225 per household that usually gets hit with overdraft fees.
Okay, so it would have had a real impact.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of crazy how much overdraft fees have grown over the years. They started with checks, but then when everything went electronic in the 2000s, they just exploded.
It's like the banks found a new way to make money.
The CFPB also found that about 70% of overdrafts are charged to people with average balances between $237 and $439.
So it's hitting the people who can least afford it.
That's the argument. And the rule that was overturned would have given the big banks, those with more than $10 billion in assets, a few options for dealing with overdraft fees.
What were those options?
Well, they could have charged a flat $5 fee.
Yeah.
Or they could have charged a fee that actually covered their costs for the overdraft. Or they could have set up an overdraft service that was more like a loan with a clear APR.
So more transparency, basically.
Right. But the American Banking Association is saying that if this rule isn't in place, banks might just stop offering overdraft protection at all.
Okay, so it could backfire on consumers in the end.
Potentially.
Fascinating how these things work out.
Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about the legal world. There's been a new development in the Ripple versus SEC case. It has to do with a request for evidence.
Oh, wow. That case had been dragging on for a while. Fill me in.
So Eleanor Terrett, this journalist who covers a lot of crypto stuff, she reported on X that the SEC is fighting a request to submit what's being called decisive evidence.
Decisive evidence? Sounds intriguing. Who's making this request?
It's a guy named Justin W. Keener. He's not actually a party in the lawsuit.
So why does he want to get involved? And what's this evidence he has?
Well, that's the thing. Nobody really knows what the evidence is, but the SEC is saying he shouldn't be allowed to submit it.
Why are they trying to block it?
They've got a few arguments. First, they're saying that the request isn't proper because the case is currently under appeal in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Their argument is that once a case is being appealed, the district court doesn't have jurisdiction anymore.
Jurisdiction meaning they don't have the power to make decisions about it, right?
Right. Basically, the SEC is saying the lower court can't do anything about this request.
Okay, so that's one argument. What else are they saying?
Their second argument is that Keener hasn't actually tried to officially join the lawsuit as a party. And even if this request was considered a motion to intervene, they say the district court already denied similar motions before.
So they're basically saying he doesn't have the right to be involved.
Exactly. And their final point is that Keener doesn't even need to intervene because he can just give the evidence to Ripple directly.
So they're saying Ripple can handle it themselves.
Yeah, they're saying Ripple can decide if the evidence is relevant and useful and if they want to present it to the court during the appeal.
That makes sense. But here's the thing. Remember how Ripple and the SEC are supposed to be settling this whole thing?
Yeah, they reportedly reached an agreement and are just finalizing the paperwork.
So this new evidence might not even matter at this point.
That's true. Keener said his evidence was good for Ripple and for liberty for the American people, but we don't know what it is.
No, it's all very hush-hush.
And there's another twist to all of this. The SEC is actually suing Keener themselves. They're saying he was acting as an unregistered penny stock dealer.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So it wouldn't be surprising if that's part of the reason why they're fighting his request in the Ripple case.
Yeah, it kind of puts things in a different light, doesn't it?
And one more thing to keep in mind. Paul Atkins is going to be the new SEC chair. He's generally seen as being pro-crypto.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That could be a big shift for the SEC.
Yeah, it could definitely change how they regulate digital assets in the future.
We'll have to see how it all plays out.
Okay, let's move on to the Middle East. Things are getting pretty tense between Iran, the U.S., and Israel.
It's been brewing for a while now, hasn't it? What's the latest?
Well, we've got this guy, LT Cole Stewart Crawford. He's a political and defense commentator, and he's saying that U.S. and Israeli warplanes could attack Iran within weeks if they don't back down.
Wow, that's a bold prediction.
Yeah, he's basically saying that Iran has been supporting anti-Israel and anti-U.S. groups for a long time, and that they need to be stopped.
What makes him think that an attack is imminent?
Well, he points to the fact that groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis have been struggling lately, and he says that's a sign that Iran, the country that's been backing them, is in trouble.
So he's seeing those groups' weaknesses as a reflection of Iran's own problems.
Exactly. He's also talking about how Israel has been hitting Iran's air defenses. There was this operation last year called Operation Days of Repentance in October 2024, where they apparently took out some key targets.
So Israel has already been taking some direct action.
Yeah, and the U.S. has been involved, too. They've launched airstrikes against the Houthis, and they've been sending some pretty clear warnings to Iran.
What kind of warnings?
Well, for one thing, they've moved 6 B-2 Spirit bombers to Diego Garcia. Those are heavy hitters capable of reaching Iran, and they can carry those bunker buster bombs.
Bunker busters, yeah. Those are designed to penetrate deep underground facilities. It's a pretty clear message.
Right. And it's not just the bombers. They've also got the USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group joining the USS Harry S. Truman in the Red Sea. That means there is something like 160 aircraft in that area now.
So a significant increase in military presence.
Yeah.
What has Iran's response been to all of this?
Well, they've been threatening U.S. bases and forces in the region, but Crawford doesn't think they'll actually attack Diego Garcia. He says their drones and missiles don't have the range or accuracy to pull it off.
So he's not too worried about that specific threat.
No, but he does think that attacks on U.S. warships or Israel are more likely. Although he's also saying that those targets would be heavily defended and Iran would face some serious consequences.
So it's a high-stakes game they're playing.
Yeah, Crawford's basically saying that if Iran doesn't stop supporting the Houthis and come clean about their nuclear program, there's a good chance of a military conflict soon.
It's a very tense situation.
Okay, let's end on a slightly more positive note. We've got some news about diplomatic efforts in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister just wrapped up a visit to the U.S.
Okay, that's good to hear. What was the purpose of the visit?
Well, it seems like the main reason was to prepare for President Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia in May. It's going to be his first foreign trip of his second term, and after Saudi Arabia, he's planning to visit Qatar and the UAE.
So he's making the rounds in the Gulf.
Yeah, and while the Saudi foreign minister was here, he met with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They talked about a lot of stuff like Gaza, Sudan, Yemen, and even the Russia-Ukraine war.
Wow, that's a lot to cover.
Oh, and with all the tension in the Red Sea, you can bet they talked about the Houthis in Yemen, too.
Yeah, that's got to be high on the agenda.
It's interesting, though, because this diplomatic visit happened right after the U.S. announced those new tariffs. And apparently Saudi Arabia is a little worried about them because they could cause oil prices to drop.
That makes sense. Oil is their lifeblood.
Right. And remember, back in 2017, when Trump was first elected, he made Saudi Arabia and Israel his first two stops on his first foreign trip.
Yeah, it shows you how important those relationships are to him.
And there was another interesting development recently. Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they talked about the U.S. taking over Gaza.
Taking over Gaza.
Yeah, it was just a proposal, but it got a lot of pushback from Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region.
That sounds like a controversial idea.
Yeah, it definitely ruffled some feathers. But Trump has also said that he wants the war in Gaza to end soon. And in the meantime, the U.S. has been carrying out airstrikes against the Houthis in Yemen.
It's a complicated situation with so many moving parts.
It is.
And this is why we do what we do, right? Trying to untangle it all for our listeners.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot today, from the Supreme Court and DOGE to Congress bank overdraft fees, Ripple, and the SEC, and all the way to the Middle East.
A lot to keep track of, but these are the things that are shaping our world right now.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand what's going on and why.
We always say that.
And we'll keep saying it.
So that's it for the deep dive today. As always, we encourage you to keep following these stories as they develop and to think critically about everything you hear.
It's a complex world out there, and the more informed we are, the better equipped we are to navigate it.
Well said. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the news that matters.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed.
And stay engaged.
We'll see you next time.